Hello beautiful people and lovers of food. Today we're going to be doing an apple cinnamon roll. My name is Vivian and I am your easy chef. Welcome to part 2 of Apple Pie Friday. This is the second of my apple pie series. The first one was apple pie. If you want to go watch it, click here. Today we're going to be doing an apple cinnamon roll, which I am dying to try. For today's bake, we're going to need a few ingredients. We're going to use some apples with some cinnamon, some flour, some sugar, some butter, some cream cheese, and for our Cinnamon Buns, we'll need some yeast. And then we're going to use some cream because everything is just better with cream. What we're going to do now is we're going to do our dough for our cinnamon rolls. You don't need to use bread flour, you can use cake flour, it's not going to make a difference. We're going to put a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar. We're going to use about 2 teaspoons of yeast. So I'm going to use my little measuring spoon just so that I can put enough in. And I've always been told, I don't know if it's the truth, that don't put your yeast on your salt. Apparently the salt isn't good for it, so rather put it on the sugar. That's that done. We're going to add our water now. You don't want to use cold water because yeast needs warmth in order to reactivate. You almost want to use lukewarm or body temperature water. Okay, so you'll see that your dough comes together quite nicely. It also might be a little bit stiffer, might be a little bit stickier. It's okay. It's okay. Your dough will still work. What you need to do is, if it is a little stickier, you add a little bit of flour. If it's a little bit stiff, you can add a little bit more water. It's not the end of the world, and you shouldn't be stressing yourself over it because it's going to end up being delicious. And then I'm just going to get my dough out of my bowl into the flour, and we're going to start kneading our dough. Now, if you have a mixer, you can also use a mixer to do this process. I actually prefer to do it by hand because then I can feel how sticky the dough is or how tough the dough is, and I know sort of what I'm working with. And what I do when I knead my dough is I try to make folds. So I'll fold the front to the back and then I'll push it out. Pull the dough, push it in, and then I give it a bit of a turn. This is all just to get the dough nice and elastic and smooth and silky. And what we're going to do just to enrich our dough a little bit is we're going to add a little bit of butter. And I've got some butter here which I've just roughly chopped into little squares. And I'm going to put one in and I'm going to keep kneading. And this, again, the process takes a while, but it's so worth it when you have these super soft, fluffy cinnamon rolls. Oh, I cannot wait. I'm just going to shape it into a nice little ball so that it's neat and can rise evenly. It doesn't matter that we use a bowl that's a little bit dirty. It's the one it came out of. It's all the same ingredients, so we're not going to worry ourselves too much. We're going to put our dough in our bowl. And then my favorite trick to do whenever I need to prove some dough is I like to get a bowl, one that's a little bit bigger than the one it came in. So if I put this in now, you'll see it doesn't touch the bottom of the bigger bowl. So I'm going to put a little bit of warm water in there, or hot water, and this is recently boiled. I'm going to put a little bit of hot water in, not too much because I don't want it to actually cook the dough. I just wanted to give it a bit of like a steam bath, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with some Glad wrap. I don't want the steam to get into the dough, so I'm not going to put the Glad wrap over the second bowl. I'm going to go find a nice warm sunny spot to put this in. If it is in the direct sun, I generally also just put like a tea towel over it. So a nice warm environment, but not in direct sunlight. Like that is perfect. Let's go find a place. I like to make a caramel for my apples. I put a little bit of water, a little bit of sugar, and I bring that to the boil. Once it's nice and bubbly, I add a few blocks of butter. This really makes it smell amazing and more like a caramel than just a normal sugar. Then I add some cream once it's nice and caramel colored, and then I start to add my apples. This will make the mixture quite runny, but that's okay. We'll add our spices, let it stew for a while, and then we'll strain it a bit later for our apple cinnamon rolls. So, our dough has risen beautifully. It's pretty much doubled in size. Might need a bit of flour to handle it because it will have gotten a bit stickier. What we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of flour down and roll this out, put our batter on it, and then make our cinnamon bun shapes. What helps with sticky dough is if you work fast. So if you hold your hand there, you're probably going to stick to it. But if you work fast, it normally dodges you. And if all else fails, a little bit of flour. So good. When you're rolling out the dough here, just so that you get more cinnamon buns, it's nice to try and stretch the dough into a more rectangular shape, because then the little ends that you'll cut off at the end are not really a waste. You can almost make it a perfect little cinnamon bun on its own. So you'll see what I've done is I've stretched the dough in the corners here to try keep it in sort of a nice, neat shape. What we're going to do now is we're going to take some softened butter and we're going to spread it onto our dough. I can feel there's some nice chunks of butter here, and you know what? Butter's good. Butter's good. Spread it all over the dough. It's looking fabulous. I cannot wait. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to mix a bit of cinnamon and sugar. This is something I don't normally measure out because you can normally see with your eyes if there's enough cinnamon in your sugar. And hey, maybe you're like me and really enjoy the flavor. So normally I just put in 2 teaspoons. I just said I don't measure this out, and then I gave you 2 teaspoons worth. And then we're just going to very, very generously sprinkle this all across our dough. Oh, it looks good. Looks good, it smells good. And this is going to turn into a beautiful caramel while it's baking in the oven. So I'm not forgetting that this is an apple cinnamon bun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a pot of apples, and I'm going to take about a cup, and I'm just going to put it in the middle of our cinnamon bun. So it's almost going to wrap around our apples. I don't want to get too much of the juice in for this, so I'm going to try very carefully to not get it too wet. And then I'm not going to put it all the way on the end. I'm going to put it just off the edge. A nice, relatively generous helping of apples so that each cinnamon bun has a good chunk of apple in it. And once your apples are in, we're going to roll it. So when we roll it, we're just going to start with one end. We're going to tuck it over the apples, and we're going to try to keep our apples in our dough, and we're going to roll. It's going to be a bit messy. It might come out the edges a little bit, but it's all going to come together. Okay, I'm just putting flour on so that it doesn't stick, because now that I've added the apples, it is going to be a bit more of a wet dough, but that's fine. We'll get it into our tray now. Okay, once it's nicely rolled, we're going to grease our baking tray. So I've got one of these nice Pyrex ones. Just going to give it a quick make sure it doesn't stick. And I know I've seen a lot of tricks and stuff to make this an easier process. This, I just think a knife works the best. Try sort of get a measurement that I reckon about a 5 centimeter per Cinnabun, and you just cut all the way down. Because I've added the apple in the middle, you'll see that it is a little bit wet. Looks a bit messy now, but once it's out the oven and it's poofed up all deliciously and it's got all that gooey goodness in it, you'll know that you have done it right. This should be in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes or until it's nice and golden brown on the top. This smell is worth a like. So please hit the like button, hit the bell, and give a comment if you'd like to see more. Oh, and don't forget the most important one. Please subscribe because the smell is worth it. Our cinnamon rolls are ready. The only thing I need to do is just make a quick little icing for them and then they'll be perfect. I'm going to do this with some cream cheese, icing sugar and cream. It doesn't need a lot, about half a cup of cream cheese, which I'm just going to stir a little bit just to soften it before I go and add my icing sugar and my cream. I want the icing sugar and the cream just to loosen up and make it not as thick. So first I'm going to add my cream, just a little bit at a time. Same sort of reason, if you put it all at once, it's just going to be a mess. You want to do it a little bit at a time. Just add our icing sugar. And this is going to be to taste. I know some people who love their icing sugar super duper sweet. Maybe a smidge more. Oh, it's looking great. I think it needs a little bit of a zing, so I think I'm going to add some lemon. So this is just to taste. So a couple of drops, then you taste. A couple more drops, then you taste. You don't have to go big, otherwise it's going to be a little bit, and you'll want to go home. That is perfect. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my Cinnamon Buns and I'm going to put this on top. Speaking of things that are wonderful, I would like to take this moment to thank Westpac Lifestyle for sponsoring my channel. They have been wonderful in providing bowls, dishes, baking tins, measuring spoons. Everything I've used today has been sponsored by Westpac. So if there's something that you see here that you like, you know where to go. So you can see how well these things have grown. Marvelous. Oh, it looks so good. Oh, and it smells even better. Just want to spread it out while it's still warm. So this is our cream cheese icing for our Cinnamon Buns. So our cinnamon rolls have just come out the oven. I'm dying to taste one. They look so good. They're soft. They've got the icing on. Ooh. I can't even tell where one starts and the other stops. Look at that. The dough is soft, it's light, it's fluffy. It's cinnamony, that apple filling. That's the good stuff. Thanks so much for watching. This has been episode 2 of my Apple Pie Fridays, and I swear it only is getting better. Next Friday, I'll have a baked apple pie cheesecake, so hit the bell. You don't want to miss this. Stay delicious, beautiful people.